I've always been a fan of Don Henley's music. The first songs I learned on guitar when I was 13 were Eagles songs, Peaceful Easy Feeling, Take It Easy. And later when I had teenage angst about relationships, I did woeful versions of Desperado and Lion Eyes. Some unlucky folks in the audience here have had the opportunity to hear me play some of those songs at our after events at the Forum. But there's another side of Don that I'd like to tell you about tonight. Back in my eBay days in the early 2000s, I took a vacation out in the woods in California, and I hadn't taken a vacation in a long time. Just as I arrived, I got a message that Don Henley had called, and he invited me to a private dinner and an Eagles concert that night. I was amazed. Don Henley was calling me? So I was torn between staying on vacation or going home. And as I was thinking about it, I saw, for the first time ever, an eagle flew by. I took that as a sign. So I drove home, and when I arrived up in the tree, there was another eagle. I had heard that Eagles was the name that the group came up with when they were first starting out. And they had a vision of this name while doing peyote in the desert. This is going to be fun tonight, I thought. Alas, there was no peyote at the dinner that night, but Don described to me another vision that he had for conservation of the environment. It turned out that Don was especially inspired by Henry Thoreau's book, Walden, from 1854, that reflected on the joy of living in harmony with nature when Thoreau lived in the Walden Woods. The book marked the beginning of the American environmental movement and inspired philosophical descendants such as John Muir, Walt Whitman, John Burroughs, Herbert Wendell Gleason, and Edwin Way Teale. Thoreau's other passion was social justice, and his famed essay, Civil Disobedience, influenced everyone from Gandhi to Tolstoy and Chekhov to Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela. In 1989, Don heard that a property developer was going to plow over a historically significant portion of Walden Woods, and he was sad that the environmental movement might lose one of its primary symbols. So he set out to stop it by gradually buying the land bit by bit through benefit concerts, persistent efforts, and as it turned out, by having dinner after dinner with as many people as he could. And so Don Henley became a social entrepreneur, and our lives intersected. Over the years, Don has preserved much of Walden Woods and created the Thoreau Institute, and these efforts have become beacons for the conservation movement, educating hundreds of thousands of people a year. I was proud to help add a Silicon Valley element along with Sally, supporting Worldwide Walden so that people everywhere could experience Walden online. Most of you know Don Henley as a prolific artist, but I hope you'll leave tonight with an appreciation for his exceptional charitable work. I'd like to close by sharing some lyrics from Don's most recent solo album, Cass County, which came out in 2015. Came out of the gates at #1, leaping across generations to create yet another piece of timeless music. In his song, Praying for Rain, Don says, "I ain't no wise man, but I ain't no fool, and I believe that Mother Nature is taking us to school. Maybe we just took too much and put too little back. It isn't knowledge, it's humility we lack." Join me in welcoming Don Henley. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. They told me to place this right here. So there it is. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jeff. I am deeply grateful for this recognition. I'm not going to sing for you this evening. I'm going to talk as best I can. I just finished a tour in Australia and New Zealand, so I don't have much of a voice left, but I will croak this out. I appreciate the opportunity to provide a brief overview of the Walden Woods Project's mission. And for those of you who are interested in learning more about our work, I would like to direct you to our website, which is simply walden.org. If you promise to go to our website, I promise to speak for less than 10 minutes. Located about 20 miles northwest of Boston, Massachusetts, Walden Woods inspired the writings of author and philosopher Henry David Thoreau. Walden Pond and the woods surrounding it are a cultural treasure and a National Historic Landmark. The problem is that about 95 years ago, back in the early days of the 20th century, when measures were being taken to protect Walden Pond and Walden Woods, over 1,000 acres of the woodland where Henry David Thoreau walked and thought and wrote were left unprotected, hence the founding of the Walden Woods Project. During the course of the past 27 years, the Walden Woods Project has been able to permanently protect a number of sites near Walden Pond that had been threatened with commercial development. But more historic land remains vulnerable, and our conservation work continues, along with our educational work. Our initiatives are built on the framework of Thoreau's fundamental ethics and tied to today's global challenges. I'd like to briefly summarize two key topics. Number one, why the context and application of Thoreau's principles are more important than ever before, and how Thoreau's writings encourage change in the way we think and act to protect the planet and to drive social progress. This year we commemorate the 200th anniversary of Thoreau's birth, and in doing so we celebrate one of only a handful of individuals credited with fostering two distinct yet related sets of moral imperatives. Many refer to Thoreau as the father of the conservation movement. He told us why we need to recognize the role of nature in our lives. He said, "In wildness is the preservation of the world." And he told us that every town should have a park, a common possession for instruction and recreation. He realized 200 years ago that our physical and spiritual health is vested in the health of the natural world and our connection to it, not our domination of it. He was one of the first people to assert that his literary masterpiece, Walden, is not a book about life in the woods. It is a book about life in the world. It's a story of everyone, everywhere, transcending the present moment and representing the promise and the prospect of every person through the ages. Thoreau's second moral imperative involves the individual's obligation to resist evil in all its forms. The views he expressed in his essay, Civil Disobedience, were a precursor to today's passive resistance movement. Thoreau said, "What is the value of any political freedom but as a means to a moral freedom?" He posed the question, could a greater miracle take place than for us to look through each other's eyes for an instant? So as we consider the current political landscape in America and beyond, Thoreau's words continue to ring true. Civil disobedience, based on the citizen's responsibility to oppose slavery, would become a very influential work for some of the world's greatest leaders and thinkers, including Gandhi, Tolstoy, and Martin Luther King Jr. Recently, an independent writer and climate activist named Wynne Stevenson authored a thought-provoking article entitled, "Why Thoreau Matters Now." He wrote, "There is no greater threat to human freedom today than climate change." If slavery was the human moral crisis of Thoreau's time, then global warming and its impact on countless innocent lives is the human and moral crisis of our own time. As Thoreau knew, in the face of such facts, the thing to do is not to retreat, but to engage. Thoreau was a keen observer of the natural world. And today, his prolific journal entries about the plant and animal life in Walden Woods are offering scientists valuable data on the impacts of climate change in New England. In fact, there's a book about it called Walden Warming. Thoreau's writings provide insights into some of the most urgent issues of our time, and these include understanding and protecting the biological diversity of life, living on a planet of limited resources, and the role of personal responsibility in today's world. At the Walden Woods Project, our educational initiatives employ Thoreau's ideas in understanding and confronting these challenges. Over 500,000 people visit Walden each year, and 1 in 4 of them lives outside the United States. This presents a great opportunity to introduce Thoreau's ideas on a broader global scale to a broader global audience. We have a new interactive experience at the Walden Woods Project. It's called Where's Your Walden? I know. Anyway, this new interactive experience will invite Walden Pond visitors to identify and share their own Waldens, places of special significance, natural beauty and inspiration, or ecological significance. And this approach embodies a very simple idea that was inspired by Thoreau, that places like Walden Pond are essential and universal. Thoreau saw himself as an everyman, and he made Walden his everywhere. And this idea reinforces the reality that we all share this planet and everything is interconnected. As Thoreau's great disciple John Muir said, when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. So we can't protect our Waldens without preserving the global environment, because it's all connected. The Walden Woods Project's educational initiatives encourage youth to reflect on their environmental ethic through Thoreau's lens of personal introspection, examining what the natural world means to them and how they can work to protect it. And as a result, they develop a moral compass that will help them navigate many different issues for their lives. Our organization maintains the most comprehensive Thoreau library in the world, affording scholars access to a wealth of research materials. Recently, a determined and courageous man from Iran used our library's resources to translate Walden into Farsi for the very first time in history. This extraordinary man said, "I do not look at myself as a mere translator of Walden. The peoples of the world need those voices who know where a bridge of understanding should be built." He said, "We cannot be friends, we cannot begin to love one another if we do not first try to understand each other." Henry David Thoreau, like so many people who are far ahead of their time, was roundly criticized in his own time and in his own place. He was labeled a crank, an idler, an eccentric, a weirdo. But his words continued to reverberate and to touch people around the globe. So in closing, I wish to say that I'm truly honored to be here today among all of you who are working so tirelessly and successfully to advance values-based solutions to global challenges. Thank you.